my friends. Thad Riley is here. The ThadCast is back. I'm so excited to have this moment back with you, and I think this is a colossal moment, really, in the history of the ThadCast. I am so excited to be relaunching with our mission and our purpose and what this thing is going to be all about. And to my listeners from before, the thousands of you across the country, I want to say thank you for having stuck with me for 3.5 years, for 424 episodes, for all the amazing conversations that we had, the interviews, the insights. I learned as much from you, more from you than you could have ever learned and been informed on from me. So I want to say, first of all, thank you to my listeners from before. To my new listeners who are getting engaged now, I want to give you a little bit of a history of the ThadCast and what we were all about. Well, we started about, I guess it would be 4.5 years ago, and we lasted about 3.5 years, did 424 episodes. Now, when it started, I've always been about good news. I'm an optimist at heart. I love having a light perspective and being a light in our world. That is so much about the story of who I am and what I want to emulate. And that's just the natural Thad Riley. That's me at my best that's just me, right? That's where I get my kicks. And so when the ThadCast first started, it was about a lot about my relationship with Jesus. It was about my family, being a dad and stepdad to 6 wild kids. I think Max and Caitlin were just entering college when this adventure began. And that would be about right. I think they were about a year in. And then we had kids in high school, entering high school and middle school, and all the tomfoolery of it all. So when you have 6 kids, they're everywhere. So we were talking about that. We were talking about being a small business owner and a lot of running stories. Running was a huge part of my life. I'm injured now, so it's like no part of my life till we get over this injury. That's a whole other story for another episode. And maybe we'll do an episode about what happens when you lose that thing that you thought was the thing, and it's no longer the thing because you lose it. All right. So that would be a fun episode. And we'll get to that maybe one day. But what the ThadCast had transformed into was a cultural moment. It had transformed into this thing, this idea of how a conservative, how somebody who believes a lot of the values of the Republican platform and my faith as a Christian is going to reconcile the world we live in today. Because we've never had more propaganda. We've never had more, as Donald Trump would call it, fake news. We've never had more mixed messages, confusion, and people saying one thing is true, but we know it's absolutely not true. And so we began to dive into cultural issues, which I think may have been the precipice of leading me to run for school board, become involved in my community, and then, of course, let go of the ThadCast for a year, for a season. I never knew if it'd be back, but we are back. We are back in full force, by the way. And another 400 plus episodes to go, right? And then we ended up pausing for this campaign for governor. And it has been such a journey that I decided to come back early on while everything was still fresh in my head. And I could share with you some of the things that I learned. But more importantly, we are going to talk to some of the people that I've met. I've shook hands with thousands of people across the state of New Hampshire. I've heard their stories, what's important to them, where they've been in life, what matters most right now to them in this moment. And it's so funny because you hear from the news and you hear from the ads and you hear this, but I've talked to people. I'm hearing their stories firsthand. And I will tell you, the narrative is awfully different. It's incredibly different when you hear these stories firsthand than what is being pumped out by the media and even some of what you'll read on social media. Because when you're face to face with someone and you start asking them questions, what happens? You get the real answer. You get the truth. You get their story, and their story matters. And if their story matters, then guess what? So does yours. So does yours. So it's incredibly important for us to take a step back and say, everything we're hearing in our world today may not actually be accurate, but what we're going to try and do here at the ThadCast is bring you some truth bombs. And that's what it's going to be. Do you like the term truth bombs? I'm 50 years old. We'll just throw out whatever terms we can. Does that work for you? Okay, great. Well, let's talk a little bit, if we can, then about the elephant in the room. This run for governor, this crazy adventure I've been on. There were nights driving back from Coos County with the fog where I was staring at a sign that said Moose Crossing. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is a road that I would usually go a little quicker on. What happens if my vehicle collides with a moose? Well, guess what? The moose loses and I lose too. And driving through this fog, not being able to see just a few feet in front of me, I'm telling y'all, the speed limit might have been 50. I was pulling about 12 miles an hour. I ain't having nothing to do with hitting a moose. So I want to share that with you right off the bat. That was one piece of adventure. And then you go into towns and you mention something and it explodes. In one town, it was water and PFAS and the challenges of having clean drinking water. We're dealing with that in parts of America right now and here in New Hampshire. And what is good water and what is bad water, and who did what to the water. In other parts, why are there non-public sessions of school board meetings? And what is going on in this last school board meeting where they went non-public and nobody seems to be able to talk about what was discussed by public officials behind closed doors? But then you hear the stories of real parents who pulled their kids out of public schools because of an incident. And then you hear the stories of somebody who has lost faith, complete faith in our government today. And one time they were all in, but now they're so confused and so exhausted, they've given up hope and they're selling their business and they are literally going to find another country. This is true, to go move to. There are stories all over the state that confused and perplexed me. And I kept asking more questions to understand where people really were today. As I gathered more and more information, I realized that the information that we've gotten has just simply been bad. So that's what we're going to try and do here on the ThadCast. But we're going to recast things and keep things upbeat and positive. But we want to get to the heart of the issues that we're facing here today in New Hampshire, that we're facing as Republicans or conservatives or whatever you want to call yourself. I'm not much for labels. So how about we start here? My name is Thad Riley. I'm a very happily married. I know my wife is so out of my league, y'all. And I know y'all know that if you know her. She's ridiculous. She's just ridiculously amazing. I have 6 kids. I'm a small business owner. Part of that's the podcast. Part of it is an indoor cycling company that I have. I've been a follower of Jesus since I was the age of 4, and I've been on so many adventures in this wild and crazy life that I'm here to share a few of them with you. But what I'm really excited about are the people that you're going to be hearing from. Going across the state for the past year, I've been so inspired to hear your stories, to hear what is going on in your lives and how you've overcome so much, especially over the past couple of years. I'd like to share with you something that is really important that I learned on the campaign trail. And I saved this for the first episode for us to talk about. It is an incredible subject for me, and I'm so excited to share it with you today. But right before we get into that, I want to share something with you about the ThadCast that's very important to know. First of all, the ThadCast is going to do something it hasn't done ever before. We are about to take on sponsors and advertisers. And it's very simple how this works. If you want to sponsor the ThadCast, it is simply $25. And we are only doing this for a short period of time. These costs are going to change because we know we are going to have tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of listeners, and we're going to saturate the state of New Hampshire. I would imagine we're going to be at close to 500,000 listeners, not only in the state of New Hampshire, but across the country within the next few months. So if you are interested in being a sponsor of the ThadCast, here's what you get. For $25 an episode, and there will be 2 episodes a week, we are going to read your name of you. Now, you may be a candidate, so we're going to say you're a candidate, what town you're a candidate, state, city, whatever kind of candidate you might be. We are going to read your name here on the ThadCast, and we are only going to accept sponsorships from candidates that I personally am endorsing. Okay, so that's very important to know. If I read your name as a candidate, that means they are endorsed. We are all in, and we're supporting that candidate. And that's only $25 an episode. Also, we are going to have advertisers. And for $100, you're going to get a 15-second ad. And we are going to read whatever. I personally am going to read that for you. So we're going to make sure that the ThadCast can stay in production this time. I have a lot of business needs and a lot going on. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to cover the cost and to also give me a little bit of money to keep doing this, to make this a worthy adventure. So hear me clearly on this. We need sponsors. Now, if you want to sponsor and not have your name read, great. But we'd like to read your name as a sponsor, if that's okay. If it's not, just say, and that's fine too. But we would love to endorse candidates specifically. We'd also love to endorse businesses. That is a very important thing here on the ThadCast. So $25, 2 episodes a week. Let me know. Email me at thad4, that's F-O-R, thad4governor.com. Send that email today and tell me if you want to be an advertiser or if you want to be one of my sponsors. But we need to get this up and rolling ASAP. That price will change in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so if you want in, don't hesitate. Just get in. It's not something you're bound to, but it's 2 episodes a week at $25 an episode. Okay, so just letting you know the business part up front, how we're going to make money so we can stay in business here on the ThadCast and keep doing this thing. But contact me. Do not hesitate and wait. If you wait, I promise you, those prices are probably going to quadruple in the next 2 weeks. So jump on it. And I would love to have you as a sponsor. We need sponsors. So please consider sponsoring, and please consider, if you have a business especially, or if you're running a campaign right now, get on the ThadCast so we can promote you. Because I'm telling you right now, conservatives and Republicans across the entire state of New Hampshire are going to be listening. And that's just the way it is. And we're excited, and across the nation. And you will find support from every aspect. Okay. So that's how we're doing that with sponsors. Don't forget to email me. You can also send me a text or call me, 603-397-9211. We need sponsors. We need them to happen ASAP so we can keep doing this. All right. So I want to share with you something extremely important that I learned while I was out on the trail. Okay. And it's the elephant in the room. Okay. I learned about running for governor. I learned about running, and you're sitting there going, yeah, dude, yeah, I bet you did. But I want to talk to you about how you process something huge in your life, like running for governor. Now, this may mean for you something different, a career change, or launching a business, or moving, starting a life with your family in a new place. It could mean so many things. I don't know what it means for you specifically, but I want to talk to you about how you process something huge in your life, like running for governor. Okay. So there's going to be 3 main points to this. First, you have to know yourself and what you're capable of. Okay. So number 1, know yourself and what you're capable of. Now, first, let me share this point with points within the points, right? I knew without a doubt, I always finish things better than I start. Now, I learned this from running. And in 2018, I started training for a race. And the race was the New Hampshire 10-miler. It was a hilly race. And I wanted to get my best time. I wanted a very tough hilly race, not just a hilly race, but very known for brutal hills. Okay. I mean, just literally like, I'm supposed to run up this thing. I feel like I should walk. So I learned how to be a finisher. And here's how it started. It started with practice. I kept failing at my runs. I would go out on a 4-mile run. I would stop at 3. I would go out on a 5-mile run. I'd stop at 2.5. I'd go out on a 6-mile run. I'd stop at 5. I'd go out on an 8-mile run and I'd stop at 6. And this kept happening again and again and again. Suddenly, I couldn't finish my runs. And what I'd realized was my body was shutting down because my mindset was shutting down. Think about that. My body was shutting down because my mindset was shutting down. So what I began to do was I began to convince myself that I was a great finisher, that I finished things very, very well, that I finished things with strength, that I'm better at the finish than I am at the start. And I began to speak these truths into me until they became ingrained in who I was. It became part of my identity over a period of several months. I would go run and convince myself and talk myself through these things. And I would simply say, you finish things better than you start. And lo and behold, my first mile I'd go out and run, I'd be like 10 and a half minutes per mile. My second mile, I'd be about 10. And I would keep getting faster and faster and stronger because I absolutely had convinced myself that I finish things better than I start them. So I knew when I was running for governor, I had to start early, but I had full confidence in the length of the race. It was almost a year. That's a long time to run for governor. That's a lot of work for a year. I'm telling you right now, holy cow, 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, sometimes 20 hours a day. Sometimes on 4 hours of sleep. It was a lot of work. All right. But I kept saying to myself, Thad, you finish things better than you start. And at the end, it was frenetic flurry of activity. I was everywhere with everyone doing so much because of the mindset that I had built. You have to say things like this to yourself and convince your mindset of who you want to be and who you can't be and the potential was. Because I knew in my heart I could be a better finisher. I knew that I was failing because I wasn't being up to my potential. And I convinced myself of this by repeating it to myself. Thad, you finish things better than you start. So that was number one. I knew that about myself. So if you struggle in finishing things, if you kind of flame out a little, and a lot of people do in our culture today because people make excuses, right? So we teach our kids not to do that. We certainly don't want to be doing it ourselves. So my encouragement to you is to own that mindset and convince yourself that you can do better and whatever that might be. For me, it was finishing. I don't know what it is for you. Maybe it's just taking that first step and maybe you just go like crazy. But for me, it was finishing. Secondly, I know how to communicate with others, how to listen and how to respond. So, and this is the part of knowing yourself before you run for governor, right? And I knew in my heart, after years of working with families in crisis, that I was going to be able to take the time and listen to folks on the campaign trail, that I would be able to have good relationships. And that was important because if I wasn't getting valuable seeds of information from them on the campaign trail, I would never know what to do as a governor. And that was something I accused my opponents of, that they would just go in and talk and not talk and listen to the people, actually hear the stories of what was going on. I knew that was important, maybe the most vital thing in being governor of New Hampshire. And that's what happened. As I got to go out and speak and listen, I was able to learn and be able to address the issues and even sometimes be 2 steps ahead, knowing what was going on the ground before even the media reported it, before anybody was talking about it. I was hearing things from people all over the state in different parts of the states. So I knew that my ability to listen well and to reconcile information was going to be a huge asset. Okay. If I had poor listening skills, I would have not run for governor. I would have gone the other way. But I knew what to say in conversations to get more information, but to also, what was important in this moment, I want to make people feel affirmed. I want to make people feel good about who they are and what they're doing. It really, really matters to me that I'm a light as we move throughout this world. But I knew that my listening skills were going to serve me very well on the campaign trail. And by God's grace, they did. And I'm blessed by that. Number 3, I am 50 years old. I've had a lot of careers, jobs, positions throughout my career in leadership where I have had to be able to control my moods, not to get too down when the moment is crushingly tough, not to get too overwhelmed, and to stay positive at all costs, no matter what kind of obstacles that you still need it. You have a job and you still need to get the job done. And I'll give you some examples of this. For instance, when people would attack me and accuse me of things that were untrue, I knew it would affect my mood and my work if I focused in on their words and their false accusations. Somebody started a daily post about my lies. And I looked down there, I'm like, I never lied about this stuff. You're crazy. What I did was I would put that person on my prayer list. I would pray for them and move on. And that allowed me to reconcile it in my heart. Now, you may just need to write their name down on a piece of paper and then look at it, stare at it, and say, this person is not going to destroy what I'm trying to do with my life, and then take it and throw it away and say, I'm done. I have closure with this person. This person's coming after me. Hey, I'm moving on. Whatever that looks like for you, having closure and being able to own relationships, especially the people who are attacking you, especially the people who you feel stand against you, that is crucially important so that you can move forward with what? With strength, with positivity, with momentum, that you're working hard and you're not distracted by your moods. Somebody like me running for governor is going to get the most horrible emails. You're going to be attacked online. People are going to slander you. All of this stuff I knew was going to happen. But what I addressed before I started running was, how are you going to control your moods? Now, one of those was through running. So what happened when I couldn't run? Find a substitute to control your moods. You have to be able to do that to be a good leader. And I'm going to give you some great examples. When I was out on the campaign trail, I was with other candidates. And I remember in one meeting, one of the candidates got asked a specific question by a guy sitting in the front row to his left. And he was asked this question, and it was a very tough question about campaign financing and money he took from a certain industry segment. And instead of answering the question to the guy sitting in front of him, he kind of blew off the answer, but he looked on the other side of the entire room. He looked away from the man, completely away, and answered the question, not even engaging with this man in this moment. And it was very, very bizarre to see. But I knew in this moment he had lost control. The candidate had lost control of the room, didn't know how to control his own moods. You could tell he was frustrated. His emotions were coming out, and he got into some long spiel, and it went horrible. But I knew by being able to control my moods and having a career where I had to control my moods in leadership at a very intense company like Verizon Wireless in an intense industry, people were not happy with their cell phone bills, right? People were not happy with smartphones when they first came out. People would throw phones. True story. It had to have people removed from store by police. These things all had happened. And everybody, all your employees and your team are looking at you to set the tone. So I had learned early on how to control my moods, how to react with strength and dignity so that I did not get thrown off course. So I say these three things under know yourself and know what you're capable of. Okay. So I knew as a great finisher, I knew how to communicate, and I knew that I knew how to communicate with others, right? Knowing that you know how to do that's the battle. And then I knew how to control my moods. All of these were made relevant to me before I ran for governor, and I knew what I was capable of because these were three relevant pieces that would greatly affect the race, that might even have put me over the top. I didn't win, but however, I believe that I got more votes because of these three things. So it's very important to know yourself and know what you're capable of. All right, so secondly, in processing, again, the subject is how do you process something huge in your life like running for governor? Second, you have to have certain gifts and skill sets and affirmation of those gifts and skill sets. Now, there are always going to be negative Nellies, and there's always going to be people who are close to you in your life who are going to say, don't do it. You've lost your ever-loving mind, or what you're talking about is completely impossible, and all of these types of things. But you know in your heart, this is the thing that you are supposed to do. This is the job that you are supposed to get done. Well, I will tell you this. It is important to live in reality, but it is also important to pursue with tenacity the purposes in front of you. And if you know that you are supposed to do something, whatever that looks like, you need to step forward and do that thing. So I was very much understanding that I have a certain set of gifts and experiences that would lead well to me running for governor and possibly being able to win. I also had the affirmation of people that truly cared about me, people that I respected. So I sought them out. I asked them questions, and they helped me make the decision to go and do what I've done. Now, I didn't win, but I learned so much from the experience. I'm so much of a better person from it. You know, I was never really a public speaker. I would get too nervous before I spoke in front of people. Now, at any point, I can grab a mic and just go. And I had some pretty nerve-wracking moments. I mean, when you have the governor of a state, and he's a pretty popular governor, and he shows up and you're speaking in front of him, and you're speaking about your opponent and he's in the room, that can be an interesting moment. And I'm grateful to have gone through it because it tested me in the fire. But I knew before I ran, from the affirmation that I'd gotten from others who cared about me, that this was going to be possible, that this was going to be my wheelhouse, and it was time to step forward and move forward and do good. So make sure you get some affirmation and understand your gifts before you jump into this. If not, there may be a few skills that you need to work on. You may need to ask people a few questions. You may need to get some more advice and some more help. But I would encourage you to understand your gifts and why or why not this might be a good idea, okay, before you jump into something huge. Because there are times you'll jump into something, you'll be like, well, why did I do that? That stunk. And it was because you may not have done a great inventory of what you needed to do an inventory of in your life. So make sure on point 2, you look at your gifts and you look at affirmations from people who truly care about you. Optimistic people, not negative nillies. Stay away from them. They're never going to do you any good, okay? They're really not. Negative people are just going to bring you down. You can minister to them. You can be a light to them. You can be an encouragement to them. Some of them you cannot get away from. Family, you're just stuck. That's the way it is. But you can still live your own life. You can still blaze your own trail. You have to be aware of your gifts and your strengths, though. Third, and finally, I had a purpose. I had a purpose. So when you're processing something huge in your life, like running for governor, like a career change, like moving, like something colossal, okay, when you're processing these huge moments in your life, you have to have a purpose. I'm going to tell you what my purpose was. My purpose was to do better, to do good for the people of New Hampshire. And I knew that purpose when I looked at folks, when I was talking to them, no matter how tough the questions might get, no matter how tough the accusations, because it's politics, they always accuse you of stuff. No matter how tough it might get, I knew that my purpose was to do better for the people than had been done currently by our governor, to do really good for the people of New Hampshire. And because I wanted to do good as governor, I knew that we were moving forward in a positive direction. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a purpose. If you're going to embark on something huge in your life and you don't really know exactly why you're doing it. In fact, I can tell you, we had several purposes. One of my biggest purposes was to do good for my children. I look at the world around us right now. This is a clown show. Some of the stuff that's going on in Washington, D.C., some of the stuff that's gone on the past 2.5 to 3 years is a clown show. And there are people with overreaches of our freedoms, and it's not okay. I had a purpose to fight, to get in there and fight for our freedom, yes, but really for the freedom of my children in the next 10 to 20, 30 years. And I believe that's what made me the best candidate for governor. Now, it didn't happen, but I still believe that in my heart is what made me the best candidate for governor, because I was fighting for our future. You don't hear a lot of Republicans talk about our future. They don't talk about it the way that I do. I have a vested interest. It is my children and my children's friends. I look at our generations to come, and we need warriors on the front line who are not pushed around by the liberal media and the woke mob. And I will tell you, both tried to push me around countless times. I have so many things that happened that I can't even begin to tell you about, where people tried to push me around. And they found out pretty quick that I was ready. I was prepared. Okay. And I was prepared because I knew myself. I knew what I was capable of, right? I had a purpose. I knew my gifts, and I knew what was going to come. I thought through very carefully and planned throughout this election. And I said, what is going to happen when somebody goes off on you in public? How are you going to respond? How are you going to respond to this question about your past or anything like that? The good news is I don't have much of a past. So we were sailing free in that. And that was, I actually had a private investigator investigate me just to see if something came up, like that Sears card that I was late paying on when I was in college. They gave all the college kids a Sears card, and you're like, hey man, what can I do with this? Oh, I'm going to go buy some new khakis. Hey, it was the 90s. We did khakis all day in the 90s. So listen, you have to have a purpose though. You have to have a purpose. If you are questioning your own purpose, and now listen, if you're questioning your purpose, you may want to pause, but that purpose can evolve. The more that I got involved in running for governor, I understood my purpose very, very, very clearly that it was to do good, that it was to do better for the people of New Hampshire. And those people that I was really looking at were my children, was the future. And I will tell you, if we don't have frontline freedom fighters, if we don't have frontline people who will speak truth into the situations, we need to get new frontline people. If your state rep is washing over what Joe Biden is doing in Washington, D.C., I don't know how the Democrats can even vote for each other, looking at some of the stuff they're standing for right now. So hear me on that. Feel me on that right there. That's important. My purpose was to fight a good fight, to fight in the truth, to battle hard in the truth. I had a purpose. Do you have a purpose? Do you know your purpose? If you do not, you need to recalibrate. Take a few hours, get away from everybody, go to the beach, go to the mountains, sit there with a journal and write through and pray through what your purpose is. If you are going to do something huge in your life and you don't know why, you're in more trouble than you think, because you cannot go down that path, because you will really be disappointed with the results. You will become depressed. You will blame God. You will blame yourself, and your morality, your positivity, your mindset will crumble. You have to have a purpose. If you do something huge like I just did this year, and you do not see that purpose crystal clear, and you don't know it by heart, I'm telling you, you're going to struggle. It is worth a couple of hours now to save yourself from a lifetime of feeling like you blew some big moment. Take a few hours, sit down. I cannot be more passionate about this, and define your purpose in what you're doing. That is the key to all of this. If you're going to make a huge moment in life, you got to define it. Okay? So how do you do it? How do you define the purpose? Since we're talking about this, I'll finish up with this today. How do you define your purpose? Okay. And I gave you an idea. You've got to be in a space where you cannot be interrupted. It starts with environment. Put the phone down, shut it off. If you have an Apple Watch like me, what I do is I take it off, I set it aside, I get rid of it. I get rid of all distractions, whatever it is. I get the dog in a room where if he barks, he won't bug me. And I get alone with my journal and I pray through things and I look at them and I write very definitive statements and I work through the best possible scenario and make sure that my purpose is meaningful. And that's what I did throughout this election. And once I discovered it, it never left me. It became ingrained in me. And that's why we had such a strong finish. That's why I did so well in the debate, because I knew my purpose and it gave me other abilities to fight. If you do not know your why, you have to stop. You have to pause. Doesn't mean it stops. Just pause. Get it. It won't take you that long. Spend the time. You are worth it. I see people run at a frenetic pace all the time. They blast themselves into something. All of a sudden, they don't finish well. They don't have any of their gifts affirmed. They don't have people behind. I saw this on the campaign trail with candidates. They would fizzle out all the time. They had no momentum. They had no motion. They had no activity. I had a ton. I've learned so much because of it. And even though I came in third place and got 11,000 votes, and it wasn't what I wanted, like 7%, I wanted 20, even though I did not get what I want, those results are less important to me than what I know is truth, which was I did my best. I did my best to win. I worked as hard as I could, and I never backed down. When people tried to push me around, I kept going. Why? Purpose. What gets you there? Purpose. What is on the front of your mind when you go out and have to do something scary, like talk in front of Republicans all over the state, hundreds of people in the room for the first time, and you're nervous? Purpose, 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 and purpose. By the way, purpose. That is how it happened. That is how we got as far as we did. And I'm very, very proud of myself. I'm very proud of the efforts my team put forward, my supporters, people who donated. I am proud of you all who supported my campaign for governor. And I promise you this, I will be back. What that looks like, I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, we can't even begin to go there. But I'm fired up about it. I'm fired up about it. And I'm fired up for you. I'm fired up for the ThadCast and the direction this is going. We are going to have guests on here that are going to blow your ever-loving mind. They are going to bring fun and value and insight. And I promise you this, we are going to have the best time, and people are going to be talking about this. So again, let me just go over a couple closing things here. First of all, I need sponsors ASAP. $25 an episode, 2 episodes a week. Make the commitment. I'll talk about you and your candidacy, or I'll mention you and your company. I need advertisers ASAP. 15-second ads. If I only get a couple, it'll turn into 30-second. So if we can get some advertisers, $100 an episode. These are entry-level prices that you would never get on a podcast. You'll get them here now for the next couple of weeks because we got to get this thing going. But that will only be for a few weeks. And once you are locked in, you are locked in for at least 6 months. Okay? So follow me on that. I will make sure of it. You can end it at any time, but do be a sponsor. What else? I need you to share about the ThadCast, that we are back, what we are doing. Share it with your friends. Let them know. Follow me at my formerly Thad for Governor professional page on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. You will find all kinds of updates on social media about the ThadCast. We'll put it on True Social. It will be out there. This is about New Hampshire in so many ways, but it's also about New Hampshire values and Republicans, and being a follower of Jesus is going to be in there too, because it's part of everything of who I am in my life. But this is an important moment for us here in New Hampshire. We finally have a podcast that talks about New Hampshire values out front from someone who has spent the last year talking to people, hearing stories all over the great state of New Hampshire about what's really going on today. Well, that is it. That is it for episode number 1 of the ThadCast. Next time, we will have our first guest. And I'm telling you what, you're going to be excited. I'm excited already for you. So we're going to have our first guest on. It'll be this Friday. So in just 2 days, it will be published and out. And I can't wait. I'm so excited for you all with that first guest. Make sure you tell a friend about us. I'm so grateful for all my listeners who are back. I'm back. I'm not going anywhere. We'll be back twice a week. I'm so grateful for you every day. Well, this is Thad Riley signing off. I'm so grateful that you joined us today here, and I will be back soon. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. In a place